Before I start the video, I'd like to thank meowth for letting me preview his upcoming mod. There's going to be 2 parts. The first part will be a comparison type thing, and the last part will be an interview with meowth himself. Again, I'd like to say thank you to meowth for giving me a preview copy of his mod, and let's just get into the comparison.
My kung fu's the best. What the hell?
Dude, I'm Jane Whitman. I'm the girl who unified baby.
You're one of them, aren't you? Stay away or I'll blast you. Oh, Mr. Newcomb, am I glad to see you. You pretty near gave me a heart attack there. Thank God they haven't gotten to you, too. One of them, aren't you? Stay away or I'll blast you. Oh, Mr. Newcomb, am I glad to see you. You pretty near gave me a heart attack there. Thank God they haven't gotten to you, too.
Hey, it's me again. The interview portion of the video is about to start, but I'd like to go ahead and say please forgive any audio mishaps you may hear. That's completely on me. I'm still pretty new to this audio editing stuff, and especially very new to the interview stuff. Thank you for your understanding on that, and we're just going to go ahead and get into it. So is music supposed to be playing, or is that added in?
So, initially, when the leak first happened, I was looking in the files because I didn't know everything worked with the editor, so I was just kind of checking things out. And I noticed there's just a folder of music, and it was all in MP3 format. So I thought, oh, maybe this is test recordings or something. Because as far as I knew, my only exposure to Unreal was the engine. Was Unreal 1, which uses mod music, which is to oversimplify to almost a point where it's kind of a little wrong, but it's like MIDI music, but it uses its own samples and it's all self-contained. I thought it used that, so I was a little confused why there was MP3 files, and I cracked open the editor and I noticed it uses its own kind of system for MP3. And I noticed no levels in the leak play any kind of music, and I thought it was kind of eerie. And then I added one track to each level, and there was two tracks that was supposed to be cut at this random snapshot. They just happened to be in there. So I re-added them to the naming convention that all the other files had so that they could be used as music tracks in the game. A big giant however, when I was rebuilding some parts of the Lady Killer, I noticed that there was music triggers. And I noticed this for a few other levels. But basically, music is only supposed to play at some very special moments, kind of like Half-Life 1, how it plays really cool songs in some places. And I wouldn't be surprised if they made this choice solely because they wanted it to be like Half-Life 1, much like everything else in the build. But I noticed that music isn't supposed to play that often, yet in my music patch that I released, which I must have done on like the first or second day the leak came out, every level plays music, and I kind of regret making it because now it has like this sort of false notion that music is supposed to be like an every level thing, when in reality it's supposed to take turns with ambience tracks. So like, I believe it's level 3 where the helicopter like shoots the windows out. When music is playing on that level, you don't get to hear the really cool ambient tracks, like the one where like you hear sirens far away and then you hear a little bit of rain seeping through and things. You don't hear any of that, it's just music, because only one music track can play at a time, and ambience counts as music too.
Are all the levels meant to be this empty?
So For NPCs, because I assume you mean NPCs and enemies.
Yeah.
NPCs, they mostly appear where they should. There's some that don't really work all the way, like Gus in the Wild West chapter. But mostly they're supposed to be in safe areas where they probably wouldn't get hurt. And there's some exceptions, like the dam guide and the guy in the rooftops who gives you the key card. And also all the people in like the early chapters or early levels of chapter 1 where there's just people scattered around. Enemies, though, there's supposed to be a bunch of enemy counters that don't work properly.
Like what?
Some of them spawn enemies, but they don't actually work. It's mostly anything that spawns snipers, which don't work because they just don't really have any working AI. I can think of a couple levels that do it, like El Matador. It's disabled in the vanilla build, but I re-enabled them to spawn, so the ship will fly in, drop the guys off, and then fly off and it explodes. They don't really do anything, so they sort of just stand there. As for other places that's supposed to spawn enemies, they're supposed to be, I can almost 100% guarantee, just based on the structure being similar to other levels with enemy encounters, but right when you exit the casino and you hop off the sign and get onto that roof area, currently in the build, it's just a flat, empty stretch with lots of cover everywhere. And I added a bunch of enemy spawns with every feature that the EDF soldiers can use, like taking cover and fallback areas, but they're supposed to be fully functional. However, because of something that the people working, I think 3D Realms, whatever they did, they messed up creature factories, which are the things that handle what spawns where, basically. So they ignore a thing called the covert tag, which basically dictates, is this enemy able to spawn here if the player's looking at it, or can they just spawn anyways? And what that does negatively is it's like it's always stuck on. So enemies aren't going to spawn in the direction you're facing, no matter if they're behind cover or not, but they will spawn behind you right as soon as you turn around. So if you kill an enemy in front of you, he's gone, and you turn around, then you turn back around again, and there's another enemy standing right where you just killed that guy. And it'll keep doing that until it's run out of spawns. Instead of what it's normally supposed to do, is it's supposed to spawn one thing in every single spawn point instead of just picking and choosing where it wants them to spawn. So it's kind of broken, and I remember a lot of people really, I think hate is too light of a word, but they really strongly disliked what I did there because I'm hoping they didn't know that creature factories were broken. As far as some of the enemies go, some of the enemies like the alien worms, those they have 0 AI. They don't do anything whatsoever. But I guess just to test the vibe and look of some levels and how enemies would look in them, they've left props of the enemies in the levels, I assume before they finish the AI. But in the Stratosphere chapter, there's a level that just has a bunch of egg pods, adult snatchers, pod protector, tentacle arm thingies, and they're all just props. I replaced them all with the actual NPCs, and it flows much nicer because all of those NPCs work now. But unfortunately, not all of them do. Some things like the Bellosaur doesn't really work. Snipers don't really work. The worms don't really work. There's probably a few more. The shark kind of works, but it doesn't have it isn't able to make corpses or carcass decorations or whatever. I think pretty much every other enemy works though.
So the 2002 version, is that like a finished build, or is that like a completely different game, or like what's going on with that?
So a lot of people believe it's like a finished version of what they were working on in 2001. I think it's more upgraded version, but there's like a lot of differences, like ideas that they completely changed. There's some like really awesome changes that I think they were already starting to do in 2001, like with the level design. Some of the more finished levels, or I guess one of the more finished levels, like more fully fleshed out, is the level when you exit the casino. I think it's 2_1. What that is that's actually two separate levels that you come back to. First you exit it, go through the sign, get on the roof, and then you go in the sewers. And you come out of the sewers onto the street, and you're actually back in the map again. You're just actually out in the streets that you were able to see. And then, you play that whole section, you go to the house at the end, or not house, you go to the building at the end, take down all the guys, use the minigun turret, and you're supposed to use a jet ski. It's not super obvious, and it's pretty easy to miss because the jet ski's kind of weird, and I don't think it's in any footage anywhere, but you're supposed to take the jet ski and go all the way around, and in there, music is supposed to play. I'll probably talk more about that in a minute, but you go through that, and boom, that's two levels in one. Like they just reused the geometry really smart. 2002 was supposed to be similar, but on a larger scale. Judging from screenshots, exiting Vegas, I mean not Vegas, exiting the casino, and 2, maybe 3 levels about after that were all going to be combined into one thing, because you see screenshots of the motorcycle on that street that you're walking out of to get to that building, which to me kind of says, because of the way this level already works, that you were supposed to crisscross and go back between it a few times, and you were able to return if you wanted to, I guess kind of like Half-Life 1. The only reason I've been picking up and noticing stuff like this is because of a comment Frederick Schreiber from 3D Realms made a few years ago, that 2002 was kind of like Deus Ex, which I think is true, but not in the way people expect. Because you see the other things that he commented about, like objectives and stuff like that, which I believe is cut content. Like they already decided that they didn't want to do anything like that, but they could have gone back to it for 2002, or they could have had it re-enabled or something like that. But that's about it. What he meant by Deus Ex was simply that you had big level chunks, and you would just go between them, like back and forth whenever you wanted. Not that there would be any reason to, aside from, I'm guessing, like optional side stuff. But that's pretty much as far as the differences between 2001 and 2's levels. As for it being different, I've noticed compared to the screenshots, everything in Duke Nukem 2001 is a little more real looking. Like they tried to make it super dark and grounded. And 2002, it's starting to look a little cartoony, and everything's looking a little more high poly and stuff like that. I don't know if it's just the way the props happen to look in the screenshots, but they certainly look a little more cartoony. Just a little bit, not a lot, just a little tiny bit.
I noticed there's some comments going around. I'm not sure if it's the 2002 version what she was in, but there's a character named Bombshell, and is that also the Bombshell from the well, not recent release, but the Bombshell game made by 3D Realms a few years back?
Yeah, I don't know if she was in the 2002 version. I think that they might have just. I'll go back over that, but Bombshell from the game Bombshell, she's actually based on the character from Duke Nukem Forever, because she was cut from the final game. And the entire time during the development, it looks like she was like in and out of it, and I don't think she physically existed at any point after 1998, sorry. Up until they were messing around with 3D models for the final version of Duke Nukem Forever, and it looked like they just took a random stripper's head and put it on like a 3D shifted around model from the EDF soldiers. And the only time she's mentioned in 2001 currently, and I remember some developer comments going around about how the game was never meant to completely rely on her existing. There was points where she was meant to be in. If they didn't have her, the game would be able to continue anyways. Like she wasn't integral to the game. Currently in the 2001 build, she's mentioned only like 3 times. The first time, the Slick Willy level, when you get to the second floor and you have that private lap dance or whatever, the general calls you and tells you that that's basically Bombshell. I don't know if the model was meant to be or if they just happen to have a stripper in that room already. And when you go outside, Bombshell gets bad information and tells non-infected EDF guys to like destroy the trailer and stuff like that. And the very next time you get a reference to her is just tiny console print text from a trigger that is basically Duke asking, if I was a babe with a temper like Bombshell, where would I be? And I think Gus, when you free him, because you're supposed to find a couple items to let him out of his jail cell, I think he says something about Bombshell. I can't really remember, but that's more or less how she exists in this current version and how she probably existed up until release, was just she's referenced in missions, but they never really got around to completely making her a real entity.
I noticed you redesigned the casino a little bit. Can you tell me anything about that?
So for it's the casino, it actually has a name. It's called the Lady Killer. And for the Lady Killer, there's screenshots where you can see it in the background from 2002. And I guess for the intents of restoring 2001 stuff, it's kind of heretical because maybe they weren't planning that yet. Maybe they wanted the buildings to be simple. Maybe they were like trying to aim for 2001 hardware or something like that.
And that concludes our interview. I'd like to say thank you to Meowth for giving me the opportunity to preview his mod and to interview him especially. I'll leave a link to his channel below in the description if you're interested to see more Duke Nukem Forever stuff. But if you'd possibly like to see more stuff like this happen in the future, I'd appreciate if you liked and subscribed and all the other YouTuber stuff. And hopefully, I'll see you in the next video.